Welcome to the deep dive. We are taking the plunge today into the dark, really twisty world of deception, and the source material we've gathered presents this incredible contrast.
It really does.
On one hand, you have the blood-soaked silks and just outrageous opulence of 17th century royal courts, a world where personal intrigue could decide national policy.
And on the other hand, cold, technical cybercrime. Psychological abuse, handbooks, and, incredibly complex legal statutes.
It's a stunning juxtaposition.
It is. Our sources today span nearly 4 centuries. We're going from sensational historical gossip, Renaissance spycraft, all the way through to modern psychological abuse patterns and high-stakes criminal law.
But the thread connecting them is the manipulation.
Exactly. The fundamental mechanisms of control, of deception, they're shockingly constant. The tools change. A poison pen becomes a phishing email, but the target is always the same, the human mind.
So what's the mission for you, the listener, today? We have a lot of ground to cover.
The goal is to give you a kind of decoder ring. We're blending history and applied psychology. We want to show you the specific mechanics of deception, how a courtier used them to poison a rival in 1613.
And how a romance scammer uses those identical tactics to steal $1 billion today.
That's it. We're connecting this high-stakes history with legal frameworks to help you spot the con, no matter the context. Because at the end of the day, the human factors just never go out of date.
That sounds like a powerful toolkit. Okay, let's unpack those and let's start with history. Because really, nothing beats the sheer drama of a royal court scandal.
Oh, absolutely.
These weren't just personal spats or, affairs. These relationships and the lies around them, they directly impacted state power. When things went wrong, the stakes were literally life and death.
That's precisely right. In the Jacobean court, your favor with the king, that was your political currency. You lose that, you lose everything. And the gold standard for this kind of sordid political chaos has to be the Overbury scandal.
Okay, so set the scene for us. Who were the key players?
Well, this all revolves around King James I's favorite, a man named Robert Carr. Carr had immense power. He was eventually named the Earl of Somerset.
And he wanted to marry Frances Howard.
Right, but there was a problem. Frances was already married to the Earl of Essex. So to marry Carr, they needed a very difficult, very high-profile annulment. And the one person who vehemently opposed this plan was Thomas Overbury,
who was Carr's indispensable advisor.
His right-hand man. So because of that opposition, Overbury ends up in the Tower of London.
How did they manage that?
He was maneuvered into refusing a diplomatic post abroad, which was interpreted as disobeying a direct royal order. That landed him in the Tower, conveniently clearing the way for Carr's marriage to Frances.
And while Overbury was in prison,
he was poisoned, died in 1613. The whole crime wasn't really uncovered until years later, when Frances and Carr were implicated and put on trial.
And here's where this personal scandal just spirals into a national crisis, right? It involves faith, the monarch's credibility. The annulment proceedings themselves are just bizarre.
Beyond bizarre. For the annulment to be granted, the Earl of Essex had to prove impotence. But, and this is the crucial part, he had to prove he was impotent only for Frances. Exactly. He claimed he had found an ability of body to know any other woman, so the only conclusion the court would accept wasn't simple incompatibility. It had to be malicious spiritual interference.
Witchcraft. The assumption was witchcraft. Francis was accused of bewitching his capabilities.
It was. And the moment witchcraft entered the picture, the scandal immediately linked up to these paranoid fears of a popish plot. The whole affair just undermined King James's reputation for impartial justice.
Especially when he let them off the hook later.
It showed the terrifying power of personal deception to destabilize an entire government.
And you see that kind of manufactured chaos for political gain over and over. A little later with Mary, Queen of Scots, for instance.
That's another perfect example. Her husband, Lord Darnley, died when his lodging, the Kirkhofield Abbey, exploded in 1567.
But his body was found outside.
Outside, physically unharmed. So he was smothered, not killed by the blast. Someone engineered the scene.
To create suspicion.
Precisely. It immediately cast suspicion on Mary and her suspected lover, the Earl of Bothwell. The explosion plus the smothering made it incredibly murky, incredibly damaging, and it gave her rivals the perfect political leverage to accuse her. It created a narrative of guilt, whether the facts were there or not.
Because the chaos and suspicion are often the point. You don't need proof, you just need that emotional turmoil. And it never really ends, does it? Even with Queen Victoria and John Brown, that unusually close bond led to all this gossip and rumors of a secret marriage.
a pattern holds. It holds because the tactics are fundamentally simple. I mean, look at Catherine de Medici. She didn't rely on bombs or poison. She weaponized emotion. She weaponized jealousy.
The ultimate queen mother of intrigue.
She deployed her famed courtesan spy, Charlotte de Soie. And Charlotte's mission was strategic.
What was it?
She was tasked to sleep with both her son-in-law, Henri, and her younger son, Francis.
Wow. That's high-stakes triangulation. What kind of leverage did that give Catherine?
Immense leverage. I mean, Henri's wife complained in a letter that Charlotte treated the two men in such a way that they became extremely jealous of each other. So much so that they forgot their ambitions, their duties, and their plans.
So control achieved just by manufacturing jealousy.
Purely emotional distraction. It cost nothing but emotional capital.
It's fascinating. Whether it's a 16th century courtesan or a modern online scammer, the foundation is the same. Make the target feel some extreme emotion, love, jealousy, obligation to hijack their rational thinking.
And that takes us straight to modern psychology, because all this historical intrigue, its success, relies on predictable human behavior that we now have names for.
Like the narcissistic abuse cycle.
A highly recognized four-stage pattern. It's a roadmap for emotional destruction, deployed by people seeking power, and it maps perfectly onto so many fraud schemes.
So walk us through the stages.
It starts with idealization. We often call it love bombing. This is just excessive praise, excessive attention, fast-tracking the relationship to create that instant, intense emotional bond.
The soulmate syndrome.
That's the one. They create a feeling of unique connection that makes it very, very difficult for the victim to see the flaws that come later. You're hooked in by feeling singularly special.
And then the rug gets pulled.
Then comes devaluation. The shift happens. The manipulator feels secure, or maybe the victim displeases them in some way, and suddenly the target is criticized, put down, emotionally abandoned.
Which just makes the victim try harder to get back to that idealization phase.
Precisely. And if the victim tries to leave, we enter the discard phase. The abuser leaves or pushes them away, often with shocking intensity. The cycle doesn't end.
It repeats with the Hoover stage.
After the vacuum cleaner, yes. This is the attempt to pull the victim back in. They'll shower them with temporary affection, apologies, promises, just enough to restart the cycle. The goal is always power and control.
I can see how Catherine de Medici's strategy fits right in. Love bombing the princes with Charlotte, then creating jealousy, the devaluation to keep them distracted.
But abuse isn't always so overtly aggressive. Sometimes it masks itself as care.
The covert danger.
Right. These are the sneaky behaviors that deceive the target into thinking the manipulator cares, but they're really just undermining their agency. One key tactic is excessive helpfulness.
Offering help without being asked.
Or just taking over tasks you've always done yourself. On the surface, it sounds thoughtful, but covertly, it suggests you're less confident, that you need them. It fosters dependence.
And something like protectiveness can be used the same way.
Absolutely. It's used as a pretense for control. The abuser will steer you away from friends, family, or opportunities, but under the guise of, I'm just doing what's best for you, and really they're just eliminating rivals for your attention.
And the ultimate psychological weapon for undermining reality itself has to be gaslighting.
Oh, it's a treacherous, disabling form of manipulation. It's designed to make you doubt your own memory, your own sanity, your perceptions. They use it to avoid being confronted, to shift responsibility.
It does not have to change their toxic behavior.
Exactly. The verbal weapons are subtle but devastating.
Yeah.
Guilt, blaming, lying, denying, feigning complete innocence.
The who defense.
Right. Or just total evasiveness. For example, you bring up a specific documented time they shouted at you, and they'll respond, what are you talking about? I always listen to you. I have no idea what you mean.
A complete denial of your reality.
It forces you to question your own experience. Or they shut down the conversation by blaming you. Here we go again. You're always twisting things around. I'm not going to argue about this. It's a refusal to engage, and it maintains their control.
So we've gone from poisoned courtiers to toxic partners. Now, let's see how these exact strategies, especially the love bombing, are weaponized for modern financial crime.
The translation is, well, it's remarkably direct and terrifyingly effective. Romance fraud is basically the narcissistic abuse cycle weaponized for profit.
They use that idealization phase to build trust.
Profound emotional trust. And then once that's established, they exploit the victim financially. And the scale of this has just exploded.
It's become a national crisis.
This has reported losses from romance fraud skyrocketed from, $145 million in 2018 to over $1 billion in 2023. This is industrial scale manipulation.
These aren't just solo operators.
No, not at all. These are highly structured enterprises. They're running call centers, complex money laundering operations. They rely on a network of accomplices, often called money mules, to obscure the trail.
How does that work? How do they move the cash once the victim is conned?
Our sources detail cases like a Brooklyn Park man named Courtiers. He received over 250 victim packages.
250.
Totaling over $2 million in fraud proceeds. He was basically just a high-volume courier. And it's more sophisticated than just depositing checks. He created dummy corporations, opened various bank accounts to make the transactions look legitimate.
And then move the money out fast.
Dispersed it rapidly to other perpetrators, sometimes to accounts in places like Ghana. This rapid dispersal prevents authorities from freezing the assets before they're gone.
So the goal is control, but it's not always about tricking someone into sending money. Sometimes it's about binding them through debt.
That's where you get coerced debt. It's an insidious form of domestic abuse, where abusers force financial burdens onto a partner, taking out loans in their name, maxing out their cards.
All as a means of non-physical control.
And it leaves the victim with catastrophic credit long after the relationship is over. The impact is staggering. Something like 52% of women who called the National Domestic Violence Hotline reported experiencing it.
That is a massive problem.
It is, which is why it's good to see states finally recognize it. We're seeing new legal protections in places like Connecticut and North Carolina, designed to help survivors fix their credit.
And when you look at these crimes, the legal system has to distinguish them based on the method of deception or force used, right?
Absolutely. The distinction between robbery, extortion, and larceny is key. They all involve taking property, but the manipulative tactic is what changes the charge.
Okay, give us a breakdown.
Robbery is taking property by force or the threat of imminent force. That's why it's a serious felony. Extortion, on the other hand, involves a threat of future harm, maybe revealing a secret tomorrow. It's not immediate.
And larceny.
That's classic theft, taking property by stealth or by, a false representation of fact. No force, no threat.
That distinction, imminent force versus future harm, that's the line between a physical threat and a purely manipulative one.
Exactly. And another legal nuance is intent. Like, in receiving stolen property, some jurisdictions require you have actual knowledge it's stolen. Others just require awareness of a risk.
Let's use that iPod example from the sources, because that difference is huge.
Okay, so imagine Chip is offered a brand new, shrink-wrapped, $300 iPod for $10 by a stranger in an alley.
Pretty suspicious.
In an actual knowledge state, Chip could argue, I didn't know it was stolen, I just thought it was a great deal. But in an awareness of a risk state, the price, the location, it all creates an obvious risk. Any reasonable person would be aware of it. The law targets that willful blindness.
Recognizing that ignoring the signs is basically participating in the crime.
Right.
Okay, so if emotional manipulation is the core tool of the courtier and the scammer, how does that play out in the cyber world?
It translates directly into the hacker's playbook. It's called social engineering, and it preys on human emotions and our mental shortcuts, what psychologists call System 1 thinking. That fast, instinctive thought process.
The attackers are just high-tech con artists.
They are, and they leverage Robert Cialdini's famed science of persuasion principles. There are four that really dominate. The first is reciprocity.
I do something for you, you feel you owe me.
Exactly. They offer something advice, a free download to create reciprocity anxiety, making you feel obligated to give something back, like your data or access.
And the most paralyzing tool is usually authority.
Absolutely. Authority balances fear and trust perfectly. You fear the IRS, or you trust your boss. So an email threatening an audit or a request from the CEO triggers immediate compliance.
We saw that all the time during the pandemic crisis.
That's a perfect illustration of scarcity combined with crisis. Attackers exploit FOMO, fear of missing out, especially when anxiety is high. We saw those phishing emails from fake health networks in early 2020, warning of new cases, urging you to click immediately.
Manufactured urgency.
It amplifies the scarcity. You have to act now. And the last tactic is commitment. They get you to agree to small things first. Just confirm your email, click this link before asking for something big, like a password or a wire transfer.
We have to talk about the ultimate defensive tactic used by manipulators themselves, which is that final vicious flip of reality.
The paradoxical defense.
Yeah.
This is where the aggressor, the liar, the cheater flips reality and falsely blames the victim.
To deflect attention and create fear.
It's a deliberate act. The classic fictional example is Abigail Williams in The Crucible, right? Creating a panic by accusing others of the witchcraft she herself was guilty of. The best defense is a massive, shocking offense.
Or in a relationship, the abusive partner who provokes a fight and then accuses you of being aggressive.
Precisely. And recognizing that the chaos is intentional, not accidental, that's the first step toward defending yourself.
Oh, if you're dealing with a manipulator in, say, a divorce, what are the concrete defense tactics our sources recommend?
There are critical steps to remove their leverage. 1, hide your plans to separate. If they find out, they may file first with an alternate story to discredit you. 2, keep detailed records. Dates, specific facts, not feelings.
Document everything.
3, communicate major agreements in writing. Verbal promises will be broken and denied. And crucially, create separate finances immediately to remove monetary leverage. Money is often the ultimate coercive tool.
That's the personal security mindset. What about digital security in the corporate world?
It's the same principle. You have to foster a security mindset. Think like an attacker. While technology like multi-factor authentication is key, the main barrier is behavioral change. Companies have to make it simple and non-punitive for employees to report suspicious emails.
Because if you get in trouble for reporting something, you'll just stop reporting.
And the attack succeeds. It exploits that fear of consequences.
So, looking across centuries, from King James's court to a massive online scam, the attack is always aimed at the same thing. Our fast, instinctive, System 1 thinking.
The vulnerability is consistent because the human condition is consistent. Jealousy, obligation, fear, manufactured trust. The manipulation pulls the same emotional levers to bypass our rationality.
It's an incredible journey, from poisoned rivals to billion-dollar online scams, and it's all united by that one thread: exploiting trust.
And that leads to a really profound legal concept that defines the modern harm of this. It's called the right to control theory of fraud.
What does that mean?
It suggests that deceiving someone to deprive them of the information they need to make their own discretionary economic decisions is a fundamental harm. It's not just stealing money, it's stealing their property interest in controlling their own assets.
That is powerful. The harm isn't just the loss of money, but the loss of your agency, your self-determination.
Exactly. So, as you reflect on this deep dive, consider this final thought. How much of manipulation, historical or modern, is fundamentally about stealing the victim's right to control their own actions, their choices, their reality?
If deception is theft of agency, how can you proactively guard that right in your own life?
By slowing down, by checking the facts.
A question worth mulling over long after this deep dive is complete. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.